Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Katherine Forsey. I'm the Learning Rooms and STEM consultant for Gratnells and I'm a Gratnells STEM ambassador. I'll be leading today's Learning Rooms Outdoors webinar. For those of you on social media, these are the handles that you'll need. If you'd like to connect with us during this session live, or whether or not you might be watching this recording back at another time, you're welcome to connect using those handles on your favourite social media platform. For those of you who are joining us live, I invite you to use the typed chat text function at any time. There's going to be a dedicated Q&A section after the webinar where we're going to look through the chat to pick up any questions, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. So this is what I'm going to be covering in this webinar. I'm going to take you on a journey to explore the why, what, where and how of learning outdoors. I'm going to show you a selection of practical outdoor curriculum-based activities that can be deployed immediately in your school grounds or beyond. We're going to look at a range of activities from Learning Rooms' free outdoor seasonal collections, and I'll share how they can be adapted for different ages and abilities. And with everything we've experienced over the last year, use of the outdoors for learning has never been more important. So alongside the reduced risk of viral transmission, we also see a positive impact on mental health and well-being from being outdoors. There are lots of benefits beyond boosted academic achievement, and I'm going to share those with you. Everyone who has registered for the webinar will receive a copy of the live recording, and we'll also be sharing the presentation slides. So anywhere that you can see hyperlinks, you'll be able to access and click through those. We're only going to be recording and sharing the presentation part of today's webinar. The prize draw at the end and the Q&A section will not form part of the final recording. As you can see, the slides are hyperlinked, so you'll be able to click through. And I've also provided a link to the two main areas of the Learning Rooms website that contain the majority of our outdoor learning resources. These will be shared in the Zoom chat function when I come to mention them in more detail later on. So this is how I've broken the webinar down. We've got a quick introduction first, and I'll go through the why, what, where and how of outdoor learning, sharing lots of ideas and tips with you. And then we've got our free prize draw for everyone who's been able to attend live. That will be your chance to win 2 Gratnells Smart Cases, which are perfect for all of your outdoor learning kit. And then we'll move on to the question and answer section. So this is a little introduction as to how I've come to be with you today and my background in outdoor learning. So I finished my PhD in biology at the University of York and went to the Yorkshire Arboretum to create and run their new outdoor education programme. This role really ignited my passion for outdoor learning, and me and my volunteer team taught thousands of school children every year through school group visits and large outdoor learning events. I set up a teacher CPD programme whilst I was at the Arboretum because I wanted to make outdoor learning as accessible as possible, not just something that's done on school trips. I became a freelance consultant alongside my main role in 2009, and that's because I picked up a project with the Woodland Trust working on their Nature Detectives resources. Since then, I've worked with other outdoor learning sites, schools, technicians and teachers across the UK, providing training to enable more learning to be done outdoors. I lead the Teaching Primary Science Outdoors residential course at the National STEM Learning Centre, and I also run secondary courses on field ecology, as well as inset in schools who want to use their school grounds more for learning across the entire curriculum. I'm here today in my capacity as Gratnells Learning Rooms and STEM consultant and a Gratnells STEM ambassador. I've been with Gratnells for over 5 years, and the Learning Rooms programme is a huge advocate of outdoor learning. I write most of Gratnells What's in My Tray outdoor learning resources and lead the Gratnells CPD workshops both online and at face-to-face conferences, and of course this new webinar series that you're joining us for. It's our hope that by sharing these tried and tested outdoor lesson plans and curriculum-based activities, we can support more teachers and technicians to get outdoors with their students and reap the benefits of outdoor learning. So I'm going to start by addressing the why question, which is why should we take learning outdoors? Ofsted see learning outside the classroom as a key integrated element of the learning experience. It should be well structured, well planned, evaluated and inclusive. But we're not just doing it because Ofsted say that we should. The UK's Primary National Curriculum of Study mentions use of the local area 19 separate times. The UK's Early Years Foundation Stage Framework has clear expectations for daily time spent outdoors, in addition to learning about and exploring the natural world. At Key Stage 3, there is a requirement for science to be taught in the laboratory, in the field and in other environments. So we are given permission, so to speak, at the highest levels to be learning outdoors. But going beyond those statutory requirements and looking at the research, is learning outdoors actually effective? So you won't be surprised to hear me say yes, it's very effective. The Natural Connections research project led by Plymouth University was published in 2016. They worked with 125 schools over 4 years. At the top of the slide, you can see some of the figures that they reported. They showed significant benefits for teachers and practitioners of working outdoors. You can see some of the stats where we found increased engagement, more enjoyment, improved health and well-being, fewer problems with behaviour, and in teachers we see increased morale and enthusiasm for teaching. So I see learning outdoors as very much win-win with the evidence base to back that up. The Council for Learning Outside the Classroom holds an evolving repository of published research on many aspects of outdoor learning. I've linked to it here for anyone else who's keen to dig into the research a bit further. We know that learning outdoors helps to support those who struggle with rote learning by giving them new opportunities to approach subjects in a different way. You might be surprised how students' performance can flip outdoors between your higher and lower ability pupils, especially when they're working in an environment that can be more inclusive and where learning is often more practical. The outdoors provide several key things that children need to get to grips with learning in any subject. So it provides access to practical resources and concrete objects, so things they can feel, move around and do things to, so concepts and learning areas aren't just abstract. It also helps with a pictorial understanding, so being outside gives them the opportunity to experience things in 3D from all angles, which helps with pictorial representation and spatial imagery. Also provides a real-world context and practical use for measuring tools, equipment, vocabulary and symbols. So learners can become more confident using subject-specific language if they're given something really interesting to talk about. Learning outdoors facilitates better recall and retention of learning, which can help to consolidate pupil progress. The final link that I've popped in here is subject specific. This is from the Wellcome Science Education Tracker, who reported that practical work is a key motivator for studying science. And whilst that Wellcome study looked at secondary pupils, we also know from research by Murphy and Beggs in 2003 that children in primary school are making decisions about whether or not they like a subject or indeed can imagine themselves studying or being that subject in the future. We have a key part to play in informing children's aspirations, and I think that outdoor learning can be a really important part of that for all age groups. I'd also like to quickly flip the question to why learn indoors? Why do we want to learn indoors? Those of us who've seen the first webinar in our series heard me talk about the classroom environment as a habitat. And that's where the factors shown here in the top in the graphic, they influence learning in the classroom. So that's carbon dioxide, air quality, light, temperature. They all play a key part in how its inhabitants perform. Lots of studies have shown that a lot of classroom environments are not optimal for learning. There was a year-long study that I'm sharing here by Professor Peter Barrett, who published the Clever Classrooms report. This was in 2015, and he showed a 16% variation in learning progress over 12 months between the least and most optimal classrooms. Other studies put this up to 25%. So this works out to be a difference of 8 months worth of progress when the data was looked at in terms of learning sublevels. That's a significant difference when you compare this to other more common classroom intervention strategies designed to improve pupil progress, and especially at the moment when there's lots of conversations going on around lost learning due to the pandemic. So classroom air quality is also receiving a lot of attention, and these findings from the Does Your Classroom Help Children Learn and Learnometer project will remain important as we recover, because the 7 factors shown here significantly impact pupil and teacher wellbeing. I've linked here to the Does Your Classroom Help Children Learn webinar recording, and we'll pop a copy of a link to that in the chat if you'd like to find out more about classroom environments and their impact on learning. The reason I've mentioned this is because, in short, there are many things that could be done to improve the classroom environment, but ultimately optimal looks much more like the conditions experienced outdoors. So we go back to the question, if so many classrooms are providing suboptimal learning conditions, why are we learning indoors? Coupled with, of course, the benefits I've just explained of the outdoor environment. There's some links there to a couple of articles that we've also written on that subject. So if you prefer to read rather than watch the webinar, you can link through to those once you've got the copy of the PowerPoint slides. So now that I've provided you with some of that background information around the benefits of learning outdoors, I'm going to move on to the question of what. What outdoor learning can we undertake with our children to support and enrich delivery of the curriculum? So the Learning Rooms free collection of resources to support outdoor learning can be found on the What's in My Tray outdoor page. I'll show you it now, if we give the internet a little bit of time to load. There are over 30 activities here spanning EYFS to Key Stage 4 in a range of formats. I'll show you a few of them now. When browsing the website, you can pick out any activity that takes your fancy. So I'm going to show you the STEM water wheel activity now, because that's a really useful one for a wide range of different ages. Each of the activities has a similar format, so you can see the outcomes, kit list of what you'll need, step by step what to do, and then this one has a what is happening section, which has got some key vocabulary and a description of the science behind how water wheels work. This one you might also have spotted has got a little video, so I'm gonna play that for you now so you can see one of the examples of the short videos that we've got that support you to do more outdoor learning. Just one of several videos that we've got on the site. Some of the different activities take a slightly different format. So this one I've pulled out as an example is our Bugs on Bushes activity. It's one of 4 ecology fieldwork lesson plans that I've written. The other, the format that it takes again is what's included, kit that you'll need. These lesson plans have the equipment for a full class of averaging 30, curriculum links, step by step again. That also you have the option with these lesson plans to download the full lesson plan, and then you can have it as a PDF to use as you'd like to in your laboratory or classroom. The other ecology fieldwork lesson plans have that same format, as I said, but they cover pond dipping, mini beast hunts and rock pool explorations. The equipment and techniques shared in these lesson plans would be the same for Key Stage 2 all the way through to Key Stage 4, because ecology fieldwork techniques stay the same even when you get up into research. So the difference would be the type of questions that you ask, the study or investigation that your pupils do or they design themselves, and then the data that you record, and also the type of identification guides or keys you use. You might call a freshwater invertebrate survey rather than pond dipping if you're working with Key Stage 4, for example, but they're all adapted for age and ability, so the equipment remains the same. Learning Rooms Outdoors is another part of the Learning Rooms website where we've put together seasonal collections of our curriculum-based outdoor activities and lesson plans. These are designed to help you find the activities that are most suited to the time of year. The seasonal collections are mostly best for primary school and early years audience. I'll take you to the website so you can see what's there. There's an introduction into Learning Rooms Outdoors, how it's come about, and some photographs. And then again, there's a download here which contains a full bank of activities. I'll show you that here. So we have the seasonal collection, and then each of the posters has a short description and a link through to the full lesson plan. So that takes you back into those activity lesson plans I showed you earlier. Just move that back down. I'll show you some of the ones that we've included in the seasonal collection for spring. This first one is more of an early years activity. So this one's a river in a tray. I'll play that video for you. Hang on, there we go. One of the activities that are in there. The next one, we have it as a summer activity. We've called it a duck race. It's not just a good physics experiment to evaluate a range of methods to propel a duck down a racing channel. It's also a really nice thing for summer fairs, open days, sports days, to engage family members with practical science with their children, and even raise some money for the PTA or a local charity. If that's something that you're interested in or involved with your school, then what you can do is you just type the word carnival into the search page on the Learning Rooms website, and it will bring up a selection of carnival activities that fulfill that brief. They're all curriculum linked, but they're brilliant for family engagement. All of the Learning Rooms Outdoors activities make use of simple equipment that most schools will already have. We've designed them to be as accessible as possible. There are over 30 outdoor activities and lesson plans on the website, and I've only shown you 4 here, trying to give you a good spread from early years through to Key Stage 4. What I would encourage you to do is take a look at the rest of the collection after the webinar. Pick out the ones that you feel will be most useful for the age and stage that you teach. The search function on the site is really handy for finding activities linked to your theme and topic. The next bit I'm going to move on to is where, of the how, what, where and why. We're going to think about identifying opportunities for outdoor learning within your school grounds. What I suggest is walking your school grounds and making a list of the areas that you could use for learning, and then assigning activities that you've got in mind to each area. Some of the schools that I've worked with have established timetabling for their outdoor areas in the same way as they timetable use of other communal areas within the school. I've captured an example of how you might do this in a Padlet. You can see coming up here the different areas of the school grounds as column headings. As soon as they come up, I'll read each one out to you. My colleague is going to put a link to this Padlet in the chat so that you can refer to it at your leisure after the session. So you can see we've got an area of grass or playing field. Most schools have some grass area or a playing field. Playground, hedgerow, pond, trees and bushes, woodland area. Some schools have vegetable patches and raised beds, log pile habitats, loose parts areas, and then all schools will have buildings and man-made features. This Padlet has been co-created with teachers who've taken part in online CPD workshops over the last couple of months. So there's been lots of outdoor learning opportunities that have been identified. I've ordered them so they start off with early years and go all the way through to Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 at the bottom. So you can scroll down through them and find the activities that are most suited to the year groups that you're working with. So you can see there's all sorts of a selection in there. The link to the Padlet has gone into the chat. What I'm also going to do, and I have put a lot of them in already, is I've put a lot of the Learning Rooms outdoors activities into the Padlet. So you can see them linked to here, so you can click on them and it takes you straight to the activity. And I'll keep adding to this. It's a live resource. I'll keep adding to it over time. And as I said, you've got the link, so you can click into that anytime you need to. So this isn't a face-to-face event, unfortunately, so I can't take you all outdoors to have a go, because that's normally what I would do when I'm ever doing anything on outdoors, is to take everybody out to do some practical activities. Hopefully the short videos on the Learning Rooms website will help. I do have a short how-to video here on line transects and quadrats, which I created for an online ecology fieldwork workshop. So I'm going to play that for you now, because it's a bit more on some of the techniques for getting outdoors.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Katherine Forsey and I'm here to share with you some simple ecology fieldwork techniques. The one I'm going to look at now is to do a line transect with some quadrats. I'll run through the type of equipment that you might need. There's lots of different identification guides that could help with this activity. It really depends on your age and ability, level of interest, as to which guides might be helpful. Field Studies Council have a selection of different guides. Playing field plants is a common one that's useful for school grounds and gardens, but there's also a selection for lots of different types of grassland and woodland. Gatekeeper have a similar selection of guides, just laid out in a different way for grasses, chalk grasslands and hedgerows. You can also get some free guides from Woodland Trust Nature Detectives. This is a spring flower spotter sheet. They often have summer ones as well. They are helpful because you can see all of the flowers in one go. The Woodland Trust also have a cute little wildflower swatch book that's got pictures of the different flowers on there. Other things that you'll need would be something to make your line. So a tape measure is handy. I've got two 5-metre ones because it's what I've got at home and I could join them together for a longer area. If you don't have a tape measure, you could also use just a length of rope. This is just a normal type of camping rope. I've tied a knot at 1 metre intervals and I can lie that down and then I'll know where all my metre points are along my transect line. For a quadrat, if you don't have a specific quadrat, you can make your own. This one's just made out of a simple wire coat hanger that I've pulled out into a square. Also, you can make one with a piece of string, normal string, or this is garden twine. I've tied a loop every 50 centimetres and I'll use a tent peg to pin the quadrat in place at my survey point. If you wanted to collect any samples, you might want to have a Tupperware container to collect a few things. It's usually advisable not to pick wildflowers. You could take photographs. It's nice if you're going to take photographs to have something in for scale. I use a 10p or a 2p as part of my kit. So it's all simple equipment that you should be able to get hold of from around the house. So I've laid out 2 transect lines in the accessible area of my garden. I used a random number generator app to help me determine where to place them. My garden's around 5 metres wide. I pressed on the app and it gave me a distance of 1 metre. So the first line went in at 1 metre across, and then again the second line gave me a reading of 2, so that's gone in at 2 metres across. And it gives me a chance to show you both types of line. This is the tape measure and this is the knotted line. Once you've got to that point, you use your random number generator app again to give you a point at which to put your quadrat down. So I have an 8 metre long length, and the app's told me to put my quadrat down at 2 metres. So I take my quadrat, take the corner and pop it down at the knot. Now it's up to you whether the quadrat goes above the knot, below the knot, to the right or the left, as long as you're consistent every time. And then you have a choice for what to record. You might want to count every different type of species present and record them. So you're looking at presence or absence. You might also want to record percentage cover. It will change on a study by study basis exactly what data you'd like to generate. You can also spot here, I have a homemade wind direction device. It's just a garden cane with a length of brightly coloured ribbon tied to it, showing you that it's quite a breezy day today, but it means that you would be able to record the prevailing wind direction of your site really simply, along with any other abiotic readings you might like to take, be that light intensity, temperature, whether or not it's raining, what the other weather conditions are, aspect, slope, and you might want to even go so far as having a look at soil type. So this is our first quadrat point here. You can see we've got a couple of different species easily visible, plenty of grass and also plenty of clover. We've got some white clover flowers here because the grass hasn't been mowed. We only count the plants that are inside the quadrat or more than halfway in. If a plant is less than halfway in, we don't count it. So you pay close attention to what you can see around the edges as to whether it's in or out, and then you're consistent at every recording point. You could count numbers of species present if that's feasible, or you could do a percentage cover for each site. When you've recorded what you're happy with and maybe taken some photographs, you would then use your random number generator app to move along to your next quadrat point. So this is the second type of quadrat laid out here. You wouldn't want to swap quadrat types partway through a study, but I wanted to give you sight of both of them. This is just the tent pegs in each corner at the 5 metre point. You can see the knot on the bright green string there. And the dark green string is my string quadrat that's 50 centimetres square. Again, in here, you could count up or do percentage cover of the different types of species that are present.
So hopefully you could see there, if I get the meeting controls back up and put my video back on. Hopefully you could see there all the techniques for a line, transect and quadrat. I've done that before with Key Stage 2 children all the way up to A level who are learning how to do different techniques. So once the equipment's there, I'll have a little chat now about my other sort of tips and things that we can do to help facilitate outdoor learning. I could spend at least a couple of hours on each of these, but I wanted to share a list of things to think about when you're taking students outdoors. So I've mentioned already a few times about adapting for age and ability. Often it just comes down to naming. So whether it's a mini beast hunt or a woodland invertebrate survey, the kit's really similar. And the questions that we ask and the research that we want to conduct, the variables that we look at would be different depending on age and ability. When we're in the outdoor classroom, we might want to have some expectations, outdoor learning code or rules. We would develop that together with the students, helping with that behaviour for learning in the same way that you have expectations for learning inside the classroom. Logistics, things like having spare outdoor clothing, like you would have spare PE kit at school, communicating in newsletters or on websites to parents about why you're going to be learning outdoors and what types of things you're going to be doing and some of the benefits for outdoor learning. Perhaps starting outdoor lessons straight after a break time, so you're avoiding that time coming into school and going out again, and also thinking about equipment storage and distribution. I use the Gratnells smart cases that we have 2 of to give away today because they don't let water in. They're easily carried by the students themselves, and I can also store them in the same racking that I use for my Gratnells trays. When thinking about routines, it's useful to build on and into existing school routines and expectations, and hopefully set a target of trying to learn outdoors at least once a week, or maybe one more time than you already are if you're already going out once a week. I would always suggest, if you can, starting steadily and build it up as everybody's confidence increases. Evidence and assessment are sometimes come up as stumbling blocks when learning outdoors is talked about, but it doesn't have to be a stumbling block. Free teacher assessment in primary science, or TAPS resources, are fabulous for primary science, and planning for assessment or plan resources are great for showing primary to Key Stage 3 progression info. We would also look to our EYFS colleagues, who are excellent at capturing evidence without reliance on pupils' written work, so borrow their approaches when you're learning outdoors. Embedding outdoor learning into your curriculum and planning will help to ensure it becomes a really normal way of working, and then you can begin to reap all of those benefits that I shared earlier. It's always worth quickly mentioning risk assessment. This is going to differ depending on where in the world your school is and the unique children in your class. Most schools have got generic risk assessments already in place for commonly used outdoor areas, materials and equipment. So all you need to ask yourself is, does any new activity that you're introducing add additional risks? It's also good to capture the benefits alongside, so you have the full risk benefit assessment. I've provided some links to some examples here and templates, which you'll be able to get when we share the slides. Learning Through Landscapes, the Woodland Trust, and Tim Gill has a great article that he shared for Outdoor Classroom Day. CLEAPS has guides for primary and secondary for anybody learning outside. So to finish the webinar, it's just worth letting you know that if you like the look of the Learning Rooms Outdoors collection, the Learning Rooms website is home to 8 more collections of curriculum linked activities, with over 100 learning resources to choose from across a wide range of curriculum areas. The search box, which I showed you before, is a great place to start if you're looking for something to support a particular area of learning. Everything is completely free to access. Next month, our next webinar, we're going to be launching the new Learning Rooms STEM Club and resource bank around supporting STEM clubs. I do hope you'll be able to join us for that one. If you have said yes to receiving emails from us when you registered for today's webinar, then we'll be sending out an invitation to join us. So that's everything that I've covered in the presentation section. I really hope that you found it useful. But to end this webinar section, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for joining the session today, and I hope to see you face to face or at an online event again soon.